American strike on Iran's nuclear center. What really happened? June 21, 2025, 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri. 6 B-2 Spirit strategic bombers begin taxiing onto the runway. Nearly silent, like shadows. Behind their controls, pilots fully aware that this mission could go down in history. Each B-2 costs over $2 billion. Only 19 exist. Today, 7 of them are involved in a single operation. On board each plane, one 30,000-pound GBU-57 MOP, a bomb capable of punching through dozens of meters of rock and reinforced concrete. The target, Iran's Fordow nuclear facility. This isn't a covert hit, it's a demonstration. Days before, Iran had been warned via diplomatic channels key facilities would be destroyed. Within 24 hours, satellites recorded activity, containers being hastily evacuated from Fordow. Over 400 tons of nuclear material packed into lead-lined containers, unmistakably part of an emergency operation. The B-2s vanish into the night sky. Are they flying to destroy Iran's nuclear program? Probably not, but we'll get to that later. First, take a look. This is one of the most breathtaking and technologically advanced military operations of the modern era. Iran's nuclear program is hung like a sword of Damocles over Israel's head for decades, posing an existential threat to the world's only Jewish state. For now, Israel's own nuclear arsenal remains a powerful deterrent, the only thing stopping Tehran from launching a direct military adventure. But what happens if the Ayatollahs acquire their own weapon of retribution? How does a country of fewer than 10 million people survive against a nation 75 times its size and 10 times its population? Iran has 90 million people, a robust industrial base, dozens of missile bases, and a vast sphere of influence stretching from Lebanon to Yemen. So why would the United States, Israel's closest strategic ally, warn Iran before the strike? Because the U.S. doesn't want war with Iran, not now. Washington can't afford a new military campaign, especially as the threat from China intensifies in the Pacific. A prolonged war in the Middle East would mean thousands of troops, billions in spending, and most importantly, a loss of focus and momentum in the Indo-Pacific, the arena where America's global leadership is truly being tested. So no, the purpose wasn't to wipe out Iran's nuclear program, but more on that later. For now, the operation itself. Technically, it's a masterpiece. The distance from Missouri to Iran is nearly 7,000 miles, one way. Even for a B-2 with auxiliary tanks, that's too far. They'll need to refuel midair, over the ocean, at night. The first refueling happens at about 25,000 feet, above the clouds but below the jet stream. Utterly quiet. And if you imagine this as autopilot link-up in the sky, forget it. This is precision choreography. A half-meter mistake could cost a $2 billion plane and the lives of both crews. Each B-2 requires up to 55,000 pounds of fuel. Refueling happens at roughly 1,000 pounds per minute, about 20 minutes per bomber. And all 7 are in the air at once. A single tanker won't do the job. At the refueling point over the Atlantic, 6 KC-135 Stratotankers stand by. One moves into position, another is approaching, and a third waits on standby. Every second counts. The B-2 crew holds formation in a tight cone, 30 feet behind, 15 feet below, 0 horizontal deviation. Imagine 2 flying giants hurtling through darkness at over 300 miles per hour, connected by a telescoping fuel boom. One jerk, and it's all over. But the U.S. has a way of turning the impossible into routine. Night refueling over the ocean isn't a stunt, it's a skill. And that skill enables more than flight, it enables global action. Over the next 15 and a half hours, the B-2s cross the ocean, glide over southern Europe, bypass Turkish airspace, and enter Iraq. That's where the mission shifts. No longer covert, now offensive. The ghosts in the sky aren't alone. As the B-2s cross into Iraqi airspace, they're part of a strike group of about 60 aircraft. Not for air combat, but to secure the skies and eliminate any threat. High above, 4 F-22 Raptors, stealth hunters, first into Iranian airspace, scanning hundreds of miles ahead, invisible to radar but seeing everything. If an Iranian jet takes off, it won't even know what hit it. Below them, 8 F-35A Lightning IIs, each a flying sensor hub. They passively track radar, signals, heat signatures, all without revealing their presence. Lower still, around 30 Fa-18 Super Hornets carrying AGM-88G HARM missiles built to destroy radar before it even knows it's being targeted. At the bottom of the stack, 4 EA-18G Growlers, electronic warfare aircraft. They jam everything from military frequencies to cell networks, flooding the airwaves with chaos. Behind the formation, an RC-135 rivet joint signals intelligence aircraft and at least 6 more tankers, both KC-135 and KC-46, keep the group fueled and in formation. Here's the critical part. Yes, Iran was warned. The U.S. made it clear if nuclear work at Fordow continued, strikes would follow. Iran got the message. Uranium was evacuated under guard. Satellites saw it. But the exact timing was never shared. No date, no hour, no target list. The military couldn't just shut everything down and wait. Air defenses were on standby. Radar stayed in passive mode. Command centers monitored the skies. When American signals broke through the silence, Iran flipped the switch. In modern warfare, flipping the switch means becoming a target. And a target gets hit fast, without warning. No second chances. At 5:32 p.m. Eastern, an Iranian S-300 battery near Natanz powered on. That was a mistake. An F-35 detected the signal. 4 seconds later, a Super Hornet launched a HARM missile. Simultaneously, a Growler began jamming that frequency. The radar operator shut the system down. 15 seconds later, too late, the missile was already locked on. Half a minute later, impact. A $100 million radar site reduced to smoke, rubble, and a crater. Over the next 5 minutes, more than 30 radars, relays, and mobile launchers were destroyed. The rest shut down on their own. Radio silence. Air defense panic. No one knew what was in the sky, how many, or what was coming next. Western Iran's airspace was now clear. A 50-mile wide, 300-mile deep corridor opened up. The B-2s flew straight through it. At 5:39 p.m. Eastern, flying at 45,000 feet, the lead B-2 lined up for the drop. 60 seconds to target. No flak, no signals, no intercepts, just instruments and pulse. GPS guidance locked on. Inside the bay, the 30,000-pound GBU-57 stood ready. Technically, a B-2 can carry 2. In practice, they don't. 2 bombs drastically reduce range. When flying halfway around the world with nighttime refueling and stealth protocols, delivering 1 bomb reliably matters more than carrying 2. At 5:40, bomb bay doors open. The GBU-57 drops. The aircraft shudders slightly. Autopilot adjusts instantly. The bomb falls. Engineless, accelerating under gravity over 700 miles an hour. Target, the Fordow nuclear facility, dug deep under a mountain shielded by over 260 feet of reinforced granite, built to survive a tactical nuke. The GBU-57 isn't meant to punch straight through. It's not a chisel, it's a hammer. After burrowing 60 to 100 feet into rock, it doesn't detonate immediately. The fuse reads resistance, measures depth, and explodes at the optimal point. Inside the mountain, it doesn't just explode, it creates a shock wave, downward and outward like a localized earthquake, cracks foundations, tears infrastructure, shifts support structures. The whole goal isn't to pierce a ceiling, it's to collapse the whole site. More bombs follow, seconds apart, staggered to create overlapping pressure waves. Each strike lands slightly offset to fracture the mountain in layers. 1 minute later, silence. Outside, the night. Inside, dust. Collapsed tunnels, broken systems. The factory's gone. What remains is a mountain hollowed out. While the B-2s approached Fordow, 750 miles away in the Arabian Sea, the captain of USS Georgia monitored the combat system. At 5:00 p.m. Eastern, the countdown began. The Georgia is no ordinary sub, once an Ohio-class nuclear missile carrier, now converted into a cruise missile platform. Instead of 24 Trident solos, it now holds 154 Tomahawk missiles. That night, 30 were readied. Their target, not Fordow, but Isfahan, a nuclear facility working with uranium and hexafluoride. Not as deep, but just as critical. Launching a Tomahawk isn't just pushing a button. Each missile is sealed inside a pressurized capsule. A pyrotechnic charge fires. A gas piston ejects the missile. Only then does the engine ignite. The launch shakes the submarine. Each 3,000-pound missile launches at 50 feet per second, forcing the sub downward. Ballast crews adjust water to maintain depth. One by one, the missiles fly. In 60 seconds, 30 are airborne, flying just above the terrain, dodging radar. Their flight path is timed to the second. They hit 30 minutes before the B-2s to confuse, destroy, and disorient. Each missile carries 1,000 pounds of explosives and visual terrain matching guidance. It can't be jammed, like photographic memory. At 7:05 p.m. Iran time, the first missile hit a hexafluoride storage site. A toxic cloud erupted. Then 29 more struck ventilation systems, power units, control nodes. No one on the ground understood what was happening. Air defense was blinded at Fordow. Isfahan was jammed. Mobile units scrambled but lost signal. It was too late. In under 50 seconds, the missiles achieved what would take weeks on the ground. Isfahan paralyzed. Fires, toxic smoke, blackout. It wasn't just a strike, it was isolation. USS Georgia dove deeper, hiding in the thermocline where sonar and radar lose power. Its mission complete, but the missiles had just begun. 25 minutes, that's how long the entire operation lasted from the first bomb drop to the last detonation. Iran didn't fire a single missile. No jet took off, no defense responded. Fordow destroyed, Isfahan disabled, communications cut, coordination lost. The nuclear program? Not wiped out. Uranium was already evacuated, scientists survived, the underground facilities, eventually they can be rebuilt. So what was the goal? To stop the future at the right moment, before it became irreversible. This wasn't about weapons, it was about ending the illusion of impunity. A soft warning that the U.S. won't let Iran go nuclear. But there's another theory, one we find more realistic. Had the U.S. struck uranium stockpiles, Iran might have easily retaliated and targeted Israel relentlessly regardless of the cost. Neither Israel nor the U.S. is ready for a long war. Washington cannot afford multiple simultaneous conflicts while China's breathing down its neck. At the same time, the U.S. needed to show Tel Aviv that the alliance still stands, that America didn't step aside, that there was, in fact, a strike. And perhaps just as importantly, to remind the world that the U.S. still steers the ship, that any rules are set with its involvement. Without it, nothing moves. Maybe that's what this was, a show of force without triggering a war. There's a Russian proverb, the wolves are fed and the sheep remain whole. And maybe, just maybe, someone in D.C. is already trying on a lapel for a peace medal. Quietly, just in case Oslo calls.